On the top row, your weapon, helmet and shield will always have the same primary stat whenever you collect the gear. It's always flat attack, flat HP or flat defense on their respective piece of gear. And then the customization and improvements to your character all comes from the secondary stats. They can have any of the secondary stats as long as it is not on primary stat already. When looking to gear your champions for the secondary stats, early on in the game you want to make your gear as much versatile as possible. It means that you're not hunting down and losing gear as often and losing silver. So the best roll you can get on any gear is speed, force and the power of the game. It increases the speed at which you can fill your turn meter and thus cycle your skills, and it means that you get to go before the enemy team. Then after that you want to be looking at crit rate and crit damage if your character is a damage dealer, HP to give your character more survivability and to make them less of a target towards the enemy team, defense and attack to complement the stats of that type of champion. If you've got an attack champion, put an attack on them. If you've got a defense champion, put defense. As a defense based champion, 9 times out of 10 won't gain any damage benefits through the attack stat. Resistance, if you've got someone who you want to assist the team. Resistance is helpful for champions that are going to be a key role, as in supporting your team or dishing out debuffs, as it prevents the enemy team from landing those debuffs on you. And accuracy is the opposite end of that spectrum. So the accuracy is for placing your debuffs. If you've got a champion who puts debuffs on the enemy, having high accuracy increases the chance of you landing that debuff to said enemy. Accuracy does not affect your chance to hit an enemy. Everybody has a 100% chance of landing hits on enemies. It's all to do with landing debuffs or reducing turn meter. Having flat stat rolls on your substats is less than optimal, and it's the lowest way to increase the performance of your champion. Your gloves have a unique up your crit rate is a huge boost and a massive help, especially for helping you get through campaign. Once you get further into the end game, your other gear will have crit rate rolls on them as substats. It makes it much easier to get to that 100% crit rate target. Then you can swap out the crit rate gloves for a primary stat of crit damage that furthermore amplifies the damage output of your nuking damage dealer champions. After that, the primary stats available are now HP percent, defense percent and attack percent. This is a much higher stat increase than what a flat stat increase would do. The only percent primary stat increase I do not recommend is the attack percent. This is due to the fact that if you've got an attack champion, you'll get a much greater damage output from either getting the crit rate up to 100% with the crit rate primary stat, putting a crit damage primary stat glove on for that huge crit damage hit. Critical hits give you a much higher damage increase. The chest plate now has the percent stat in its primary as well, apart from instead of having crit rate and crit damage, it has now got accuracy or resistance. The last artifact on this row is the boots. Now, when it comes to primary stats on boots, you only really want speed. 99.9% of the time, you want speed boots. Speed is the god tier role of any gear. The only time that you don't want speed boots is if you're in the very end game and you're trying to speed tune your team to work out to precisely be what a turn meter booster will give you to fill the turn meter of that champion, so then you can focus more on damage output stats. Any other time, you always want speed boots. When it comes to the ring, it does give you a nice boost to your stats. Now, it will always have a flat stat primary, and then for the secondary, it can have either flat stat or percent stat. But remember, as with all gear, you cannot have the same primary stat and secondary stat, so you can't have flat HP primary and a flat HP secondary. The amulet comes into play here with it's now got the crit damage percent in its primary, so it's fantastic for upping your damage output per turn. And then for the secondary, it has now got accuracy and resistance secondary stat. And finally, it's the banner. The banner now has an accuracy and resistance primary stat to choose from. The accuracy will help your debuffers massively. You get a huge accuracy boost from a banner, and then the resistance will help your support team, and finally you can now get speed as a substat. Now that you've got the gear selected that you want, there is a star level to your gear and there is a rarity to your gear. The higher the star level of the gear, the better the primary stat value can be. The higher the rarity of the gear, the more starting substats your gear will have. It's important to focus on getting higher star value gear rather than higher rarity gear. If you got a legendary pair of boots that had flat attack as primary, and then you only had speed and other stats as substats, they would not give your champion as much of a benefit as what it would in comparison to getting uncommon boots. Primary stat was speed, because that huge increase in speed from the primary stat is much more valuable. Always focus star level first and then rarity. So some key pointers to note is don't only level your gear to 16 outside of an artifact event. Do level them during an artifact event. Gear from 12 to 16, so it costs is in the millions for you to upgrade. At least then that high cost is going towards completing an event and you're getting rewards for doing so. Do focus stat best for your champion. A defense based champion damage boosts from his defensive stat, so always check on what stats will complement your champion the most. As a support who's not going to be a damage dealer, focus on HP to make it less of a priority, and even if it's got shields, sometimes the shield of a support will be based off of that champion's max HP, not allies. So the more HP you stack on that champion, the bigger the shield that they put onto your team will be. Do sell your gear if it's not got the stats that you want. Don't hold on to it for no reason. If you're leveling gear up, you want crit damage for your damage dealer, and it's rolled onto another stat, don't hesitate to sell it. You will get more gear. The gear that you've probably got on your champion already is doing you the job because you farmed. So look, you're just looking to improve what you've already got. So if it's not right, just sell it. Don't waste your silver and your time trying to upgrade. Go back farming and get the gear that you want. If you hoard gear, all that gear is just silver waiting to level the gear that you do want. Everything you do in this game costs. So making sure your silver stack's healthy by selling gear that you're not using will always keep you progressing. When it comes to gearing up, they do have sets. The sets do give extra bonuses, but they are not the most important part. Always look for the stat that you need and focus on gearing up that way, and then in a set, then take that set as a bonus extra. And that's why it is, it's an extra. Having the stats that you need to play the game, then in what it would to match it up with sets. The set boosts will not cover total stat loss that you've had from not optimizing the gear rolls on the gear itself. And finally, if it's got a bad primary stat, don't level that gear up. The primary stat is called a primary stat for a reason. It gives you the biggest boost on that piece of gear. Now, there is a rare occasion where a flat stat piece of gear could come in handy for an arena speed champion, but in doing that you only need one piece of gear to fill that role, and that would be it's got speed as a substat, and then you're upgrading it and all your rolls land on that speed stat to make sure that your team goes first, and that champion is going to boost the speed and turn meter of all the rest of your team to make sure they follow behind, get all their turn off before the enemy does. And that concludes today's lesson. I've been Humstick, this has been Raid Academy. If you like what you've seen, give me a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I hope you see you in the next one.